neighbors. Like a neighbor is a special relationship that is different than friendship. You can be friends with your neighbors, but you really should work hard to get along with those people, whether you are friends or not.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about community. They really are different, and it's important to have both in your life. I think it's really essential to have places you go and that are a part of where people treat you, whether they like you or not, whether they know you well or not, because you are part of the community. And for that to work, it means that this function, whether it's an institution, a place, a concept, it is going on with you or without you. And it really does show the importance of not everything is about you.
Hi, Nina. I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to speak to you.
So, before we even get into today's topic, which I am thrilled about, will you just give us a real short? You're a friendship expert. You have spent nearly a decade writing, researching, talking about friendship. Tell us a little bit about how did this become your beat?
Yes, it really is my thing. And I'm a writer. So I'm glad you mentioned the beat. You know, writers have beats, and people forget you can be a writer on any kind of topic. And it doesn't mean that you only know about that topic or that you know everything about that topic. So you can be a travel writer. You can be a writer who's assigned to education. So you talk about different things like school vouchers or all kinds of education things. You research them. That's how you know about them. You sit in on meetings at a school board. You learn about a thing. So I ended up on a friendship beat through being hired as a advice columnist. I'd had other advice columns before that in different websites on different topics. I did one on baby names, and it's not like an expert, but it's something I would research and look into, and people would ask advice, and I just loved that. That was so much fun. I did an advice column for writers on how to use Twitter back in the day, which seems so long ago. I think that was 2010, and there's just been other beats I've been on, and parenting was a big one. Around that time, a friend of mine was starting a website all about friendship and women and midlife in general, and they needed an advice columnist. And I said to her, "Oh, I can't really do that. I'm not a therapist." Same thing I'm saying to you. And she's like, "No, we'll make that the point. You're just a regular person with a really bizarre obsession with friendship," which is true. And when I first wanted to be a writer, when I had young kids, I was an English teacher originally, a high school English teacher, but I really always wanted to be a writer. And after a few of my kids were born, I would cry, and I'd say, "I really should have been a writer." And my husband was like, "So be a writer. What's stopping you?" And I did write a novel all about friendship called The Friends of Ivy Stein. It actually was all about a friendship breakup, which I know is a topic that we may get to at some point here. That was a long time. I'm talking 2006. That's how much long I've been focused on these topics.
Yeah.
I've read everything there is to read, interviewed at this point. Anyone who's had anything to say about friendship, you'll probably have some of them on your show as well. And anyway, that's the kind of long answer to how I ended up in the friendship space. And I love it. It speaks to me.
I love that so much. Okay, so I would love, will you share in the last 10 years of writing, thinking, researching friendships, if you had to distill down the kind of main, I'm going to call them pluck ups, you might call them myths, but kind of to stick with the theme of plucking up, specifically when we think about adult relationships and adult friendships, what are some of our kind of like wrong ways, plucked up ways of thinking about friendship, and specifically adult friendship, that you've seen just kind of consistently get in people's way?
Okay, the first one is just a basic social skill thing. And I think people mess up what it means to be a good listener.
Say more.
So when you are being a good listener, you don't only want to be quiet and listen. I mean, that's a great, for sure, start there. Obviously, quiet, zip it, listen. But asking questions is actually an enormous part of being a good listener. And people actually, studies have shown, ask way fewer questions than they think. So there's a wonderful book that I really recommend to everybody. It's recent. I think it was out in 2024, called Talk by Allison Wood Brooks, or it might be Woods Brook. So we'll have to look that up. But she's a Harvard professor in the business school. The book is called Talk, and the TALK each stand for a different strength of conversation and connecting with people through conversation. The A is for asking questions. And I thought it was so interesting within that chapter how she talks about the study that believe it was her team conducted when they had all these conversations, tons of conversations they recorded, and then they had people reflect on them without having heard their own recordings. And almost everybody overestimated the number of questions that they
Wow.
asked. And I think that's probably true because maybe you ask a few questions and you think, okay, I'm showing I'm engaged. But it actually takes more questions for the other person to feel that you're really listening and engaged. And I think that's an important small little skill that everybody could implement, that listening isn't just being quiet and listening, although essential. It's then asking questions that shows that you really are listening, that you really took it
Yeah.
in and that you care.
Yeah. I love that so much. I think if I had to boil my love language down, I think asking questions and being asked questions might be my number. That to me feels like the strongest indicator of like, are you here? Do you care? Are we syncing? Now I know for my guesses, being writers, journalists, pseudo anthropologists, I don't have an academic background, but it's kind of what we're doing. We're probably just naturally very curious. Like I don't feel like I have to try that hard to be curious about people's lives. I know that there are some people that are like, I also have that value. It doesn't come as naturally to me. And so for that, I don't know if you do this, but even as actually, I say I'm very curious and I am. I rely a lot. Do you use question card decks in any areas of your
No,
life?
I know about them, but I
Okay.
have never used them.
Okay. I'm a pretty big like I have a specific card deck that I use at dinner time with my kids that's like oriented towards the ages that they are. I bought one. My husband and I went on our 15-year wedding anniversary and I bought a deck of cards that was all about like sex and intimacy. Cuz I'm like, "Listen, we've been married for 15 years. Also, we are both talkers. We talk about a lot." I'm like, I think I've asked every question that I have thought to ask. Like
Yeah,
I need
I'm
an
out.
assist.
Done. There's
I'm like, yeah, totally. And so every night at dinner, we pulled out the deck of cards and we just put a card on the table and kind of had a rule that there was like, we're going to answer whatever
I
question
love it.
was on the table. There's a list of 36 questions. It's called 36 Questions to Fall in Love that was developed in like the 90s by these two psychologists. And it, I think, was intended for romantic partners, but I actually have that list on my phone that I keep when I'm out with my girlfriends. We hang out so much that I find sometimes we can get in a bit of like a kind of boring intellectual like rut or groove. And so I'll pull out these questions. I'll be pick a number 1 through 36, whatever, 17. And then everybody goes around the table and answers that question just as a way to like, especially when we're in deep relationships with somebody, sometimes it can be even harder to ask those questions because there is a sense of like, I know a lot
Yeah.
about you. And so I really like having no shame. And like, if you need an assist, that would just be my thought. Order a couple decks of cards and like, then it just becomes not feeling cringy or embarrassed to be the kind of like I feel like we're all afraid of looking like tryhards. I'm like, be a tryhard. Like you want a good life, be a tryhard. Like,
This is great
and just like
advice. I
leaning
love
into
it.
the cheese of like,
Yes.
let's ask some fun, interesting questions. So, okay, number one, question
Ask more
asking.
questions. That
Love that.
being a good listener is a little more. It takes a little more involvement than you think. And just the very last thing on that, this is not scientific proof by any academic. This is from my TikTok account. My highest, I mean highest by orders of magnitude. It's probably I can't even tell you the number. Just if the average video gets like 2,000 views, this has 200,000. I mean, it's way
Okay.
more.
Yeah.
Was titled something like "The Friend Who Never Asks About You," and people had. I mean, it really spoke to people. It's clearly a pain
Yeah.
point, right? It really spoke to people. People shared it with, and they shared it a lot because they're probably trying to not subconsciously, they're trying to passive aggressively tell their friends, "Hey, you never ask about me," and
Totally.
it's relatable because that's annoying to have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
no one want don't be that friend. I guess it's like don't be the friend that never remembers to ask about the other person. So anyway, moving us to the next one, and this is my biggest one, and any single person who's ever heard my podcast will hear me talk about this a lot, which is the concept that a friendship has to be equal is getting in the way of your happiness and your friendship. If you could accept that is not true, if you could accept that friendships are rarely equal, they may over time, over years, have a sense of equality, but they're not going to be 50-50 in marriage too, by the way. They're not going to be 50-50 at all times. And also, because each of us does friendship differently and has different skills, it may not look equal. And I always use texting as a great example because I'm such a fast texter, and I'm not even saying that's a great thing. I have my phone all the time. My friend who doesn't text back as quickly, maybe has a better balance in their life and isn't on their phone all the time. And so what I'm looking at as an annoying thing, perhaps, I mean, I used to look at it this way. I've developed and moved on. But what used to bother me is, oh, they don't care about me. They let 2 days go by before they text. That friend probably texts everyone that way. So you're taking something personally. You're creating a problem in the friendship that's not a real problem because you've decided that your friend should communicate exactly the way you do. So that's just one little piece of that is communication, but there's a lot of ways
So
that
good.
equality can be mismeasured.
It is so good. And I think that's where so much resentment starts to get built as we have. I mean, resentment is really just unspoken, then unmet expectations. It's why, have you ever heard Mindy Kaling say that a best friend isn't a person, it's a category?
Oh, I love that. No, I haven't.
Okay, I do too. And I really lean into it because I'll be like, so my best friend, da, 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 da. And then like 2 seconds later, we're like, oh my gosh, my best friend just texted me. And somebody would be like, same person? I'm like, oh no, there's like, there's 15 of them. And it's not a person, it's a category. And I have found that I think one of the reasons I think all of my friends are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I think one of the reasons that I think I can just look at somebody and just be like, you're amazing. How did I get so lucky to be in your orbit is because there's enough of them. I never ask or expect or need Miriam to show up for me in the way that I know Jessica will show up for me, because it's just like they're just two different humans. And because that need is getting met by somebody, it just releases like, girl, I know that's not your sweet spot, and that's fine. So I'm gonna go to the kitchen that I know is going to be open at this hour and have the snacks that I'm hoping for. And I feel like that might, I don't know what her myths are. So these are all a surprise to me as well. So I'm wondering if like the best friend thing could potentially be one of the myths, because I think I've seen, as we've started to create more importance on friendship, which we're both obviously very pro, I'm starting to see some of the same trends that I feel like happened when marriage went from being this like socioeconomic institution to like all about romance and soulmate. That often I think we're becoming a little obsessed with the best friend idea, and that's creating, same as what we've done to our spouse, is like, okay, I pick you, Pikachu. Now you're supposed to be all of these things for me. And it's an impossible thing for any one person. Like, you need a diverse portfolio to fulfill those needs that it creates. Sometimes I'm like, you guys got to let up on your expectations for your best friends.
I say that a lot, that people forget that you get to choose your friends, and you really get to choose more than one. I know nowadays everybody has lots of different definitions of marriage and all that. So it's like, I almost feel like passe saying that. Like, I've said that for years. I have said, you get to choose more than one. And then I imagine someone challenging me like, well, you can be polyamorous, whatever. I'm quite traditional. And so people can do what they want. I don't care. It just doesn't apply to my life. I have one husband and I'm not choosing others. So like, that's that. So, but for friends,
I only feel the need to say me too very loudly, because the fact that I live on a commune, I know there's a lot of people that maybe they are wondering. So I'll just take the opportunity to loudly say me too. I'm a big fan of monogamy for me and my house.
For us.
Go ahead.
Those should do what they want, but that's what we're doing here, which means the place I'm getting variety is also the friendships. And it's such an astute thing that you're saying that the best friend story and fairy tale really might be replacing that. And I do think, I don't know if you've read this and seen that divorce rates are going down, but it's also because marriage rates are going down. So people don't get married as much. You're like, it's like, it's two things. People don't get married as much, and they're getting married later. And so it would make sense that you're probably a little more sure that you really want to marry this person. And so
also, we just have less time before we die to stay married.
Yeah, maybe
so there's that.
There's all those like correlation things like that would make sense for that. And I could see how then friendship has taken that place of this person, and but we don't have to do that. We shouldn't.
When we're around people who we can sense don't want us to be fundamentally different
Yes.
than we are, and that we just be released to be like, I know I'm not going to be your person to call on for this, this, and this, but like, oh my gosh, I am your girl and you know it for this and this. And that just feels like it just sets us all up for so much more gratitude of who we get to be to one another and less pressure and less expectations.
Yes.
So I love that. Okay, that was principle number 2, or pluck up number 2. What's pluck up number 3?
So this is interesting lead in from the last one. While things do not need to be 50-50, I think, and this again, like an internet thing I see a lot on social media, the worship of the low maintenance friendship is a mistake. I think it's a mistake. So while we want to have reasonable expectations, so that's what I'm saying, it's kind of connected. You want to have reasonable expectations, but it is okay to have some expectations. Low maintenance friend, the way it is described by people on the internet, seems to be, I can cancel as many times as I want and you're not going to mind. Because if you mind, now you're high maintenance. I don't know if that's high maintenance as much as just being a grown up. Like, it's okay to expect your friends to show up most of the time. And then, yes, you should be reasonable. If your friend really just isn't feeling it that day and just cannot, okay, you release them. But no, they should not cancel every time. No, that's not what friendship is. You have to step up sometimes and do things that are inconvenient and do things that are kind of in your way and annoying, because that's what being in a community is. That being in a community and any kind of relationship means we don't just do things on our own schedule that are convenient for us.
I feel like I could literally reach through the screen and kiss your face right
I
now
love it.
for that myth to follow the previous one, because I think you're exactly right. I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think appreciating your friends for the uniqueness in the way in which they enrich your life and relationship that is unique to them and won't be the same as probably you do to others or others do to you is so critical. And I totally do not buy in to that resulting in like, so just be easygoing.
Yeah.
And so I just love those two things are so mutually exclusive. And I think, I have felt this in, I've walked through this in a marriage context where my husband and I have had to get really clear about what's a behavior request versus what's like a personality or character request. And like changing a behavior is something that married people need to be able to do to one another. Like I have to have the freedom to be able to say, when you do this, it makes me feel disrespected. It makes me feel disregarded. It brings this up for me. Could we tweak the behavior so that this isn't happening? I can't imagine being in a marriage where it's just like, I am who I am. So if that bums you out, like you just kind of have to deal with it. Like, okay, that's going to be a trash marriage. Yeah. On the other hand, to constantly be like, I wish you were more this, like I wish you were more bubbly or outgoing or whatever character, like personality, proclivity, that would also be death by a thousand cuts of like, well, it feels like you married the wrong person.
Yeah, like maybe
you're asking me to be something that is fundamentally different from my nature. And so I love, this would probably be something that for me brings up the importance of articulating what is typically left unarticulated and having the courage in a friendship to state what those behaviors are that do feel requisite to you. And I think we can state them and need to state them in a way that keeps them like, this isn't right or wrong, but this is, I know for me to be in a relationship with somebody, this is kind of a non-negotiable, like, and that isn't like, you don't do that. You're always canceling plans and that makes you a shitty person. Therefore I can't be friends with you is very different than I'm in a season of life where I have a goal of building these types of friendships. And you are really one of those people that I would love to build that with. In order for me to have like the trust and the desire to want to invest in you to the degree that I have the capacity and desire to right now, it feels really important to me that you show up to the things that you say you're going to show up to. You're getting the same thing across in very different ways. One is like a kind of black and white moral, this is a bad thing to do as a human, and so you're bad and now I can't be friends with you. And it really does shift the focus to like, I've done the self-work to know these are requirements for me in friendship. And if that doesn't vibe with you, if that is not who you want to become, then that's great. Like you can find a group of friends where everybody kind of praises each other for canceling last minute.
Right.
That's not the group that I particularly want to spend my time and energy cultivating. And it kind of releases you to go like, I don't think it's a good idea to put all your eggs into that kind of friendship basket, but you're an adult and you do you, and I can do me over here. But it really, to me, does come down to articulating the unarticulated and then also framing it less about you're good or bad, you're rejected or not, and more about like, this is my unique need that I have in friendship, and you have the opportunity to want to be a part of that or not.
I love the
And
way
that's
you
great.
said that because it allows the other person, which I really believe strongly in, to step up and react, and it gives them an opportunity. Sometimes people, maybe they, in a situation like this, it's possible that friend who cancels a lot has always been in friendships where it's not been a big deal, and that has been the vibe, and they have never really been asked, or those friendships have gone by the wayside, and they don't know that's why. So maybe you be the person. It's like a gift. It really is a gift to give somebody the opportunity to consider their behavior. And the way you said it was really nice. Like it's making it about like your own needs, like not a you statement, but this is what I need right now. And they
Yeah.
can have the opportunity. You give them the opportunity.
Yeah. And I think a gut check for me, this is kind of a tangent maybe, but a gut check for me when I'm being asked of something of like, do I bend or do I say that isn't who I am, really does come down to my aspirations for myself. Like when I think, to use the same analogy of a friend who cancels, it's like if I truly do have peace and I'm like, no, I want to be somebody who's like unattached to schedules and who is like really present. That's my aspirational version. Well, somebody asking me to be a person of commitment in that way goes against my aspiration. But if deep down I'm like, I want to be a committed person that people can depend on. I may not be good at it, but that is my aspiration of who I want to become. Then my friend's request becomes an invitation, not just to meet their needs, but it's actually an invitation to be more of who I've wanted to be all along. And in getting still and quiet to know the difference of like, do I even want to be the person that that person is needing me to be versus like, I deeply want to be the person that that person wants feels like to me a really good North Star that also keeps you from being like, this friend needs me to be this friend needs me to be that. And then burning out because you can't be all things to all people. But then the opposite extreme of that are people that are just like, I am who I am and I don't bend. So take me or leave me, which is also not people I really particularly want to be in a relationship with.
Yeah. This leads perfectly to the next one. It's funny how these logically work. So I guess this isn't a myth. I like your pluck up concept. A place that and a lot of where I get these ideas come from the letters people write to me. It's coming from the universe out there. I say often, it should be obvious, but it's not. You should be friends with people you like. And that's really it. Like all those letters I get, so they complain about their friends, and it could be, oh, my friend always cancels or anything. My friend never texts back, quickly, and my friend doesn't do this. My friend, on and on and on and on. What should I do? And my answer often is, well, first, let's start with you should be friends with people you like. It seems like you don't like this person. I mean, they'll have a whole laundry list of things. And back to something we talked about earlier, you get to have more than one friend. So why are we trying to change this one person? Like, yes, give someone the opportunity to change if it seems possible and if you like enough about them, though. Like, we cannot bend everybody to be the thing we want to be. There's a lot of people out there, and everybody has a lot of needs. We can't change someone so much that they fit our exact need. Maybe this is the wrong friend for you. And sometimes we have to face that. Sometimes we have to face that not everybody is a match. And you can have every conversation in the world, and you can write an honest letter, and you can say it really beautifully and make it about you and not them, and it still may not be a match.
Okay. This is good. This is good. And it feels like a natural place to talk about the difference between friendship and community.
Yes. Oh, I love that topic, by the way.
Because I feel like this is one of the key differences. I think with friendship, and specifically like intimate friends, and by intimate, I mean like people you would put in that kind of best or very like close friend category. I agree. And I think that one of the things that separates a group of best friends or your best friends individually and community is that I think in community, there are people that are not our best friends, that will never be our best friends, that like one of the most powerful, beautiful parts about community I think in healthy functioning communities, there is a seat at the table in close community for people that you are like, I wouldn't pick you, Pikachu, to be my best friend, but you do get a seat at the table. And like, I will love you and care for you and show up for you, maybe even to a very high degree. And it's less because you're my bestie and I want you to feel loved, and more because you're a part of my community. And in a healthy functioning community, I don't think there's a direct correlation between how much I like you, get you, jive with you, and how much I will show up for you and care for you in the way that whatever that specific community has kind of agreed. This is like what we do for each other.
It is absolutely so true. Neighbors, like a neighbor is a special relationship that is different than friendship. You can be friends with your neighbors, but you really should work hard to get along with those people, whether you are friends or not.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about community. They really are different, and it's important to have both in your life. I think it's really essential to have places you go and that are a part of where people treat you, whether they like you or not, whether they know you well or not, because you are part of the community. And for that to work, it means that this function, whether it's an institution, a place, a concept, it is going on with you or without you. And it really does show the importance of not everything is about you. And I mean, for me, obviously, as I
Yes.
mentioned, I think of the synagogue as a perfect example of that. And first of all, you have to go to get something out of it. So any
Yep.
community, you have to participate at some level to get something out of it. And it's also really healthy for you, and if you have children especially, to see that these things, whether they're religious or not, there's plenty of institutions that are not religious that also have these things, although you have to work a little harder, I think, to find them. And that is that there's all these things that happen even if you don't come. You are not the
Totally.
center of the universe. So my husband brings
Yes.
the kids to synagogue almost every Saturday. Now they're quite a bit older, some of mine. So they, I'm happy to say, my son goes on his own every Saturday in college. And it's happening though, whether, if we're out of town, it is still happening. There's still a meal, there's
Yeah.
still a lunch, there's people getting together, there's prayer happening. And, but you only learn about it and know about it if you go.
Yep. And I think that is actually so important. You know, we hear a lot about the loneliness epidemic and rates of loneliness and isolation. And I do feel like if we only focus on friendships, friendships is such a critical part of your social health. Community, as we've both defined it, as like it's a little bit bigger, it exists without you. You don't have to be particularly chosen or liked or have certain personality traits to have a sense of belonging. I think is enormously critical in people actually becoming more resilient to loneliness and isolation. Because if we're only in relationships where we feel like people love me, the minute you do something that makes you unlovable, all of a sudden it's like, do I lose it? Am I kicked out of the club? Whereas we like exercise this muscle. And very similarly, I'm a Christian, and a lot of the folks that I'm living in proximate community with are Christian. And in our very early days, there was kind of this sense of like, there's enough of us, and none of us are like into the kind of like huge church, mega church thing anyway. Like maybe we should just do like a little house church, like, and I was like, I don't want to do that, because what we're doing here is friendship and a form of community. I want to sit next to people week after week that drive the shit out of me. Like people that I don't want to raise my kids next door to, people that I don't want to hang out with 3 nights a week. I want to sit next to people that I vote differently from, that I'm like, wow, I just find you to be particularly uninteresting, whatever the thing is. And to go, but like, we're a part of this thing together. So I respect you. I care for you. If you need help, I will give it to you. I think like, we've got the whole like designer baby thing going on with technology. I think something that I feel nervous about as we talk more about friendship and community is getting into like designer friends. Like I'm picking and choosing, and I'm so curated with it that now I'm left with only people that I've chosen. And I don't actually think that creates a deep sense of security and safety that we need as humans to thrive. I think what does that is going like, I get to belong just because I'm here.
Oh, it's so
And I'm
important.
not going to get kicked out of the club because I didn't say something or do something or vote the way that you did or talk about this issue in the exact same way. Like, I just get to belong because
Yes.
we all raised our hands and said we want to belong here.
It's interesting because I have a podcast about friendship, but I do make a point to have episodes about community, just about neighbors or just about more community things. I could not agree more. It's absolutely right. Not everything gets to be so curated and just for you. It's really, really important to go through the world that way. That, by the way, also, yes, it's how you meet people who vote differently and who look different from you, but it's also how you meet people who are older and younger.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that
totally.
really is like that is in some sort of outside of your friendships thing. That's how you meet people who will challenge you in all different ways.
And how important is that for our kids? I have chosen very specifically in my living situation. Some people I think that we just moved onto a street and then became best friends with our neighbors. That's not how our story went. We were very close friends. We worked a lot on our friendship and group dynamics. And then we're like, let's take it to the next level and be proximate friends. And so it was very chosen. And it's like, we're not looking for more. Like, it's not like an ever expanding thing. So my friends that I've chosen to see 19 times a week were very handpicked. Like, I can't and don't want to do that with all of my friends and definitely not all of my neighbors. But my kids did not choose
Yes.
their kids.
I'm fast.
So
I mean, the
my
whole thing, I can ask you 8,000 questions, but it's like you probably answered them on your own podcast already. So we'll have to have you on mine.
so I do love that it's like it's kind of forcing my kids to a degree into that same thing that it's like you don't have to like, and I have a whole gang of boys and they're on a property with a lot of girls. So there's already this kind of natural like division. That's not who you would specifically choose. You wouldn't specifically choose to hang out with a 5-year-old girl. You're a 9-year-old rough and tumble like macho boy. But I love that innate to their, like, because I think in today's day and age, it's like so many of our kids' social interactions are like they're the kids you play club soccer with or the kids that we create play dates with. And like you've chosen them, they've chosen you. We've curated your group for you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we can definitely support our children's social health in that way. And it feels super critical to me that it's like you have to figure out how to share a backyard with the 5-year-old girl who's always dressed like a fairy, even though all you want to do is play soccer. That's actually a really important part of your, not just building an okay world that isn't going to implode, but of, I actually think you being a socially healthy person is like you don't just get to handpick the people that you think are cool and decide that's who you can be with.
It really is a good point how your kids are being forced into these values of community differently than the adults because you chose each other. It's exactly right. That's beautifully. That's because that is honestly, and I'm not kidding. It's like we're really simpatico. My last myth for you that I was going to bring in.
This is wow. You're either a genius at
No,
doing
I
this
like
on the spot, or these are really what you already had, and
no,
it's
it
working
really
out
is.
well.
And I will admit I wasn't sure if I was going to use this one because I sometimes get feedback that I just focus too much on parenting and like I can't help it with 4 kids. So I was like, well, we'll
Sure.
see if this one fits or not. But it was going to be, and this is obviously going to be this last one for your listeners who have kids. Is I actually think parents are way too involved in the kid stuff and the kids' friendships, and you definitely have to start. And you have to help your kids to a point. And some of this, and it's my own pluck up, I could say I remember doing. And what's nice having more than one kid is you get to learn from your
Redo.
own mistakes. It's great. And it's not even necessarily, I wouldn't say this is a mistake so much as I really didn't know. I remember, I
Sure.
think my daughter must have been in 6th grade or something. And I was still reaching out to, one of the moms, oh, does so and so want to get together? And the mom said to me, this was a really nice way of telling me, actually, and I would recommend to other people. Just my kid, I don't want to use names. My kid will reach out to yours if she wants to hang out. At the time, it felt like a little bit like an ouch, but I actually get now that I've had even several more kids since then. I get what she was saying. She was telling me in a nice but direct way, the
Yeah.
kids are too old for this. My kid doesn't actually want to hang out with your kid, but I'm not going to, that would be a hard thing to say. So what she said was, you know what? She said it in a nice tone of voice. I said
Wow.
it in
Yeah.
kind of a
Yeah.
harsher voice.
Yeah.
It was probably, it might even have been text, but so I guess the question is, how did I, no, but I think it was a phone call. I think she said, hey, so-and-so will reach out if she wants to. It was kind of brilliant if you think about it. It's
Wow.
an
Yeah.
important, because
Totally.
somebody had
Yep.
to give the message to my kid,
Yep.
whether it was going to be me or some, the message had to be spoken like, okay, this avenue is not like, we're not going down this road anymore. This kid's not interested.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like it's
I could not agree. I think even my kids are younger, so my oldest is 9.
mhm.
So we're still not even in the like it's just a different season of parenting, but I'm more on like playground dynamics at this point.
Yeah.
And I absolutely feel like 9 out of 10 parents are over involved on the playground. That I am just like, now if you're playing with your kid, like great, by all means, like go play tag or pirate. That's awesome, amazing. But like when I say too involved, I mean it's like two kids, something's happening. Two kids are at the top of the slide. Who's going to go down first? The instinct, and I live in Portland, Oregon, so I do feel like there's kind of this like very gentle parenting, hyper aware. We're going to articulate all of the social dynamics that are happening, which there's a lot of things that I find very valuable about that. The thing that drives me nuts, it can feel very performative to me though,
Yes.
where it's like in my need to be seen is this like hyper aware involved parent who's like naming all of our feelings. I'm literally cutting my child off from being able to experience the feeling in the first place because a parent intervened and started refereeing and doing like therapy with like 2 7-year-olds. Whereas I'm like, I think the children, obviously this is to a degree, like if your kid's being physically assaulted on the playground, feel free to like intervene. But I actually watched an interaction once where my kid, same age, like boy and girl, my kid was a boy, and he can be a lot, and he's not the most like, he was doing something that was like clearly not interesting to the people around him, but he's kind of like, ah, this is fun to me. And this little girl, I was just watching her getting like more and more and more frustrated. And I'm just like watching the whole interaction. And at one point, she literally just picks up a fistful of sand and just like chucks it at his
Natural
face.
consequences,
And
dude. Yeah.
and this was the mom came like rushing in and wanted to have this like conflict management session. And like, I think she was so afraid that I was going to like, I don't know, call CPS on her for her kid throwing a hand. And I was like, no, 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 no. He kind of deserved it. I don't think the violence is the right answer. There's definitely a better way that that could have been handled. And yes, I think at dinner tonight, let's model that to our kids and reflect that. But like, thank you. Like my kid needs to know how annoying that behavior was, and it ended up with a face full of sand. I just feel like we're short circuiting. Like this is how kids learn. And if we don't let kids kind of just do the messy middle work of relationships because we're so terrified of our child getting hurt, or I actually think what's really happening is it's our egos. It's our need to manage our own like reputation as parents. That's like where the performative piece comes in, that it's just like, can we please, I know, and it's like, I think it is good intended, but I think we're like cutting our kids' legs off from like actually being able to figure it out on their own. Like they have to learn through experience.
That's right. And I'm glad to have that reminder of when they're little. And I'm going to tell you what it looks like when they're teenagers. It's that same
Oh, please do.
behavior and that same
Yeah.
instinct that it, and the goal there, the goal for the teenage issue seems to be less performative. And I hear you. I remember that when they were younger. The goal I think the parent is having when their kids are teenagers is for their kids to not feel bad, to not feel left out, to not feel excluded, to not feel like they're not okay. And everyone's so scared of their kids' negative feelings. And I've had Dr. Lisa Damore on the podcast. She's fantastic. When your kids are teenagers, I would read her work. And she is a clinical psychologist, and she reminds you that part of the teenage experience and part of the human experience is feeling bad. It is not feeling bad, even having days when you're crying and when you're a teenager. It does not mean you're depressed. It does not mean that you have anxiety. You may be anxious. It does not mean you have anxiety as like a constant thing. And so here's what it looks like at teenagers. Your kid is in 7th grade, has nothing to do for Halloween. This can feel like a crisis if you're a parent. And so what does the parent do? The parent that a typical parent would, and I've made mistakes like this, so I speak not like as a wagging my finger. I've made this mistake. The parent will call their parent friend.
Yeah.
What's so and so doing for Halloween? Could we get? I'm going to use the word Billy. I don't know. For some reason, Billy always comes as
Sure.
my generic hit. Could Billy come? Because maybe in 4th grade or 3rd grade that was appropriate. Like, oh, what are the neighborhood kids doing for
Yeah.
Halloween? It's okay if Billy comes and walks with you guys, you know. And at 3rd grade or 4th grade, the other kids are like, they don't care. They just want the candy, whatever. Well, by 7th grade, 8th grade, we're starting to have like our own desires of who we want to be friends with, and you do have to let your kids have some agency in that, even if it means, and it's really uncomfortable for people, that your kids may leave someone out, and that person they leave out may be your kid, your friend's kid. The favors that get asked for year after year. The kid who only is in the seventh grade Halloween hangout as a favor to your mom friend is also the kid who by 10th grade probably doesn't have a homecoming group. And now you call your friend, oh, can we get Billy into, Billy has nowhere to go for pictures and for all this. You are so far from this, Liz, but it's coming.
I feel it in my
Yeah,
body
I
though.
know.
Like hearing you talking
It's
about
real.
this is bringing up so much
Because
for
we
me.
think of it from when we were kids. And um, can Billy come with a homecoming? Okay, well, now you have a 10th grader. The other kids they're going to lose patience. And your kid's going to say to you, no, mom, I cannot ask 9 other kids. And we want to say, because in community, we would say, of course, there's space at the table. Of
Yeah.
course, a decent parent would say to their kid, you have to make room. It is not how real life works in friendship, though. And if you're constantly getting your kid included in stuff because your friend's doing you a favor, you're doing your kid no favors. That's what I'm getting at. You are doing your
Yeah.
kid no favor because the kid who had nothing to do in seventh grade is the kid who's going to have to learn to go to school the next day and find different friends, and it doesn't happen overnight. It does not have. It could take the whole school year for Billy to find a couple of people who actually Billy feels like safe with and feels like he can be himself. You have to stop wedging your kids in with the people you think are the acceptable friends. Billy may be friends with
Oh.
people you wouldn't have chosen. Billy may be friends with like really quiet kids who, just aren't as like out there and cool and whatever. You have to be okay with that.
Do you have a thought about how to, so instead of like over involving yourself to get Billy into the friend group that you think you should be in, but you do as Billy's parent, because I think this is another thing that I've had to realize, like, just like there are different, what neurotypical is, and there
Oh yeah.
are a whole spectrum of folks from a intellectual standpoint who's like, our brains operate differently. We have different giftings. It is the same for social skills. So let's say you have a kid that does need more support with like this doesn't come naturally to you. Do you have any thoughts on like how you parent them through that and give them the support that they need in the direction of like, hey, let's not try to just keep knocking down the door and get you in this friend group, but like how do you help support that without like doing it for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of direction is still okay and guidance. So I'll go back to my daughter example where the mom said to me, "Okay, we're not really making plans for our kid anymore, but my kid will reach out to your kid." Or maybe she even said, "Have your kid reach out to my kid." I think that was probably more of have your kid reach out to my kid. So I would have said to my kid at that time, "Hey, why don't you text so and so, see what she's up to this weekend?" And if that one never wrote back, I would check in. Oh, hey, did so and so write back?
Yeah.
No, she never did. I would say, well, why don't you check with 3 other people? Why don't we invite people here? I'm very
Yeah.
big on teaching my kids to invite people over. You do not wait for to be invited. You invite.
Yes. I mean, that's an adult. There, right there is a word to the adults
Oh,
too.
yeah, it's huge.
Stop waiting to be involved.
Huge.
Stop waiting to be
But
invited.
that starts from when you're a kid. If you can give that to a kid, you're giving your kid the best gift in the world to always be the one. If you make plans, you have plans. Doesn't have to be with a group. One other person. To invite one other person, watch a movie or something.
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
make plans, you have plans. For the most part,
Ugh.
obviously, there are situations where kids really struggle, and they reached out for 10 kids, and they had nothing to do. Okay, then guess what, mom and dad, if you were lucky enough to have both, or whoever's in the house, we're having a fun night. Like you just the person
Yeah.
who's in charge of making your kid feel included is you. I hate to say that because I know I just said parents shouldn't be so over involved, but it is not a fellow 13-year-old's job to make your kid feel good. Kid feels good, secure, safe at home, if that's the place to start. And then maybe they can be brave enough to like invite other people over to ask other kids for plans. But it is I think people are very hard on each other's kids. Oh, so and so left my kid
Yeah.
out. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
This kid's a bully. This kid's so mean. This
Yes,
kid
the
left my kid out.
naming.
It's not wasn't that kid's job to like make your kid feel good.
I do also feel like we're kind of pathologizing like behaviors at a very. I was in a group of moms. We're talking preschoolers. There was like a preschooler that was like biting other preschoolers. And you would have thought the language that was being used was like a 40-year-old predator in the preschool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that kid's 3.
Yeah.
He's not a bully. Like he's having trouble. And I'm not saying you need to be fine with your kid getting bit at preschool by any means. But also that kid's having a hard time regulating its emotions. And your kid is experiencing the unintended consequence is very different than like a 3-year-old being a bully. Or this is another thing that really gets me. I feel like we go immediately to this child's behavior was this. We know what's going on at home.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that behavior is being modeled. Because I don't know about you, but I have some incredible friends who are some of the most emotionally intelligent, loving, generous people whose kids have shown up in the world for seasons as absolute assholes. And I think that that's what's creating a lot of shame in parenting, and our need to want to control our kids is because we have kind of bought into this, like, well, clearly if that behavior is happening at school, it's being modeled at home. And I think sometimes, especially in like abuse situations, that's probably very true. It's not always a 1-for-1 correlation. And like we have to break that, or else parents are just mired in so much shame and obsession about controlling their kids because they don't want, it to be like reflected on them. Yes. And we're hurting the kids in the process. There is a degree of like, can we just chill out and like not pathologize every part of the human experience?
This brings me back to the beginning when you asked about, and it made me smile very big. If doing this work, you didn't say it this way, but I'm saying it this way, brings like a self-consciousness about my own friendships. It does in terms of my kids, because I talk about all these things all the time with friendship. When my kid leaves someone out, which happens, of course, or I feel like the weight of the world, like, totally. And that's why I really do try to make it clear. And by the way, wanting to do something with just one or two other people doesn't make you exclusive or a bully. It makes you maybe not want to do everything with 10 people all the time. True for adults too. You have to allow for other people to have what you would want yourself. So if you enjoy one-on-one time, you cannot, everyone else who did something one-on-one and didn't invite you isn't a bully. They just wanted one-on-one time.
So good. That's so good. There are so many different threads that I feel like I could even pull on. That could be 5 more episodes, but that's not what's going to happen. Thank you so much, Nina. I just had the time flew. Yeah. This conversation was so fun. I just want to say thank you for being someone. I think it's very interesting that we're getting to this place in culture where we realize friendship and community and our social health matters arguably more than so many other factors in our world. And yet it's bizarre to me that it's still a kind of bizarre niche thing, right? It's like there are more podcasts, my guess is, about financial health or investing than there are about friendship, even though the science would definitely say this is a more important topic. That was a very long way of me saying thank you for following your interest and your curiosity and just putting your flag in the sand and going like, this is a topic worth talking about over and over and over again, and looking at from so many different angles and perspectives. I really think it means so much in the world, and now more than ever. And I'm just grateful for the work that you're doing. So thank you for being you, and thank you for being so generous to spend some time with us today.
Thank you for having me, Liz. And I cannot wait to read your book when it is out.
One of these days. Thanks, Nina.